want to discuss the truth versus lying. There is a notion that telling the truth is all you need to do in order to get the truth out and in order to convert people. But it turns out in life that it isn't quite that simple. In fact, if you find the truth, now let me just quickly talk a little bit about the truth and how you find it. Also, white people and the truth. As a general principle and rule, white people strive for the truth. It is a part of our culture, it is part of our daily life, and it's a deep part of our civilization. That is not to say that white people tell the truth all the time. That's not true. White people will tell small lies. Some white people are bigger liars than other white people. But as a general principle, we strive for the truth and we believe in an absolute truth. Our greatest yearning for the truth started with the Renaissance, when we rediscovered a history that we had lost for 1,000 years, which is actually one of the biggest disasters in the history of the white race, I might add, and a topic we need to return to. But white people have, for the last 500 years, focused a lot on attaining the truth and getting to the truth and extracting knowledge from it. This hunt for the truth, known as science, is a search for an objective truth, and we've applied it in everything we do. Thus, we have been able to build a foundation, and on top of this foundation, we could build other layers, all based on the truth. Thus, over time, this hard study and search for this thing called the objective truth has allowed us to build a civilization. So our civilization is built on a lot of foundational stuff, which was knowledge acquired little by little through careful precision, study, and time. This enabled us to build a whole civilization that is superior to anything anyone else has done. Thus, based on this work, we now have a civilization that is dominant across the planet. And everybody else has, in one way or another, adopted our civilization because ours was the soundest structure. So we are a people who generally search for the truth. Among ourselves, we are very critical, and we are not afraid to criticize each other very firmly if we are not happy that a thing is logically sound. We also try in our interactions with other people to also be honest. However, other races, as a general statement, let me make these general statements. As a general statement, white people are truthful among themselves. White people try to be truthful to other races. As a general rule, other races are less truthful. They are less truthful among themselves and in their interactions with other races, including ourselves. It is my belief that their inability to stick to objective truth is their weakness and is the reason why they are in the mess that they are. And the reasons why these black people fight each other and kill each other so much is very strongly related to the lies that they tell each other. So they lie to each other and they sleep with each other's wives and they do all kinds of things, or the one steals from one, and so it goes on. That's why they're shooting each other and killing each other. It's a direct consequence of the lying that goes on among themselves. Then on top of that, they still lie to us as well. To me, the reason why our civilization is so dominant is because of our striving for and insistence upon the objective truth. And yes, we do lie, and I believe that for us as a white race, we must seek out the truth at all costs. I'm a deep, deep believer in two things: the search for the objective truth, no matter how painful it is. No matter how painful or embarrassing it is, the search for the truth and the acceptance of the truth should be all that we concern ourselves with. And secondly, free speech. Among ourselves, we must have true free debate. true free debate, not hindered by concepts like political correctness and such rubbish. Those things are hindrances to the truth. They have no place in our existence. We are all about truth. Now, another thing about truth, it is my conclusion that it is weak people who cannot handle the truth. It is a sign of weakness that people turn to lying. The truth is something that only strong people can do. People with strong minds and strong characters. The truth is a hard thing to do, and most non-whites and others struggle to do it. But it is part of the strength of our race that we can do it, and we do it selflessly many times. So I see lying as a thing that people do in weakness. And in my own life, I can tell you that when you are in real trouble and you really have certain problems or certain things you face where the thing you are facing is much stronger than you, you find yourself having to lie, even though that's not your normal thing. So that is part of how you must look at the Jews. The Jews are a much weaker people, and they were much weaker and much less in number compared to the whites in Europe. So for them, lying became the natural survival skill. However, they became so good at it that they have excelled at it, and lying has almost become like a Jewish science. Now, the search for the truth is a slow, tedious thing. This is because white people are workers, and white people are used to doing hard work and searching and building in a constructive way. So we go and we work away at something, and it takes us time to establish the truth. A lot of rigor is needed, a lot of hard work is needed, and eventually we filter out a bit of truth. Then we spread that truth and we build on that, and then we build the next layer on top of that. We are building a building, and we're building it layer by layer, brick by brick by brick, formed through hard work, study, struggle, pain, suffering, reevaluating it, doing it again. Okay, this brick is solid. Yes, we can build on it, and so on. So it's a slow, tedious process. But the result of centuries of this effort allows us to go and send men to the moon. It allows us to fly through the air faster than birds. It's allowed us to do all kinds of completely magical things because we now know what the truth is, okay? So that's why we could fly, but say the blacks in Africa could not fly. It's because we studied a lot and we worked hard to get to a certain point. Seeking the truth requires character, it requires work, it takes time, it's tedious, it's slow. But the beauty about the truth is that once it's established, it's as solid as a rock. You can't just break this thing. You don't have to go back every second day to check if it is still so. You can go back 1,000 years later and it will still be so. The truth is a thing that is created slowly, but it's very solid. And once it's solid, you can then ignore it and move on to the next thing. Thus, the white man progresses. But the person who focuses on lying as a survival strategy, I'm not going to concern myself with why you would go with lying as a survival strategy. But I would just say at the outset that people who go with lying are normally weak people or people in a weak position. So if people are using lying, it's a sign of weakness. So lying is a sign of a weak position, and it's a sign of weak people. But there are people who, to our amazement, because we are so truth-focused, we find it very hard to grasp that there are people who have incredible strategies based on nothing but lying. Now, when you are working with the truth, it's a slow, tedious process. But when you are lying is actually a fast process. Remember, the best lie is the one that's based the most on the truth. if you have a pretty good knowledge, pretty good book knowledge, then to start inventing credible lies is quite easy. And the more book knowledge you have, the more sophisticated you can be at telling a lie. Now, it's so easy to invent a lie or even a bold lie. Once you have some background, all you need is a creative mind. If you have an understanding of human psychology and human weaknesses and human strengths, then you can take your creative knowledge and apply it to people. And you can start thinking up lies that are more likely to be grasped by some people. In fact, the whole concept of propaganda, military propaganda, government propaganda, propaganda used in wartime to try and kill people, that is all based on that kind of thinking. Propaganda is based on you coming up with thinking that is going to irritate somebody. And I'll give you an example of World War I propaganda. One of the most successful lies that they ever used against soldiers was to drop off leaflets. And the Germans did this with the French and the British. They'd drop off these leaflets behind the French and British lines, and the leaflets would say, "You left your wife Jane at home, and I wonder what she's doing." And it shows a picture of Jane sleeping with some other man. So here's a soldier, he's far away from home, and you're saying to him, you know, how do you know that your girlfriend, your wife, isn't sleeping around while you're in the trenches? That kind of thing. So that's an example of propaganda and a type of a lie that starts unsettling people. And military propaganda is a whole science by itself.